Here we go. And we're live again.
Right. And we're live. Yep.
First thing I'll say is sorry, guys. We did try and go live briefly a minute ago, but my laptop overheated. So, am I freezing still at your side?
No, yeah. Coming through loud and clear now.
Right, brilliant. Right. So, unfortunately, Ian, you have to tell us all again.
Yeah. Like I said, my first one was my granny. She died in Ireland. She was Irish, died over there. But on the night of her death, I shared a bedroom with my brother at the time. He's 7 years younger than me. Granny died when I was early teens. I woke up, looked across, my brother was crying. And when I looked, my granny was sat on the end of the bed, talking to him, calming him down. And she just looked across at me and said, "I'm okay." So I just, okay. Curled up, went back to sleep, and for years I never ever thought anything of it. I never even gave it a thought that it was paranormal. It just seems like that.
It comes across as normal, doesn't it?
Yeah. But she was as solid as you or I. If someone had seen her who didn't know her, they'd have thought she was a fully functioning human being.
That is so cool. I've heard so many. I want to say it's not exactly a crisis apparition as such, but a moment of death apparitions, as you hear about them so often. So
it was, like I say, it never ever struck me as being strange. It was just so natural. I'm okay. Yeah, I was upset, obviously, myself, but to hear her say she was okay and she was calming me brother down. Yeah. The other one, again, I don't tend to see spirit at all. I know they're there. I can tell you who's there most of the time.
Yeah.
But I couldn't actually see them. So the second one, again, involved my brother. He was at primary school, they had a school disco, and I was walking down to collect him and walk home with him. And as I walked down through Farnworth, there was a guy walking in front of me. And as I got level with him, I looked up and led on, and he let on to me. And as I stepped past him, every hair on my body stood on end. And I looked back, and he'd gone. There was nowhere he could have gone because it was where we were walking was actually a row of terrace shops. So he couldn't have stepped into a shop because every shop was shut. But that's not why I knew he was spirit. I knew he was a spirit because he was the uncle of one of my mates from school. And we used to go down to his house. It basically helped bring him up. Helped bring my mate up. But I'd been an altar boy on the guy's funeral 2 months earlier.
Yeah.
And I knew full well that he hadn't got a brother, he hadn't got a twin or anything. But like I say, he was as solid as you or I. Which always makes me wonder how often we walk past.
Well, it's as we was all saying in last week's one, the saying is out of every 200 people you walk past, one of them is potentially going to be a spirit.
Yeah. So I do believe it's more than that.
I do actually, to be honest.
Oh, probably so, yeah.
But like I say, unless you actually know the person and know the dead.
Right. How are you going to know otherwise?
Yeah, you've no way of knowing. You know yourself, you walk past someone and there's that friction as you walk past.
Yeah.
And you look and do I know you? There's something about them that triggers.
Something feels slightly off sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't specifically see spirit. I tend to get impressions of what they would have looked like or what they would have said and things like that. On the rare occasion there's something around, the easiest way I describe to seeing a spirit being in the room is like when you've got a hot summer's day and you're driving along a bit of a road and you can see the haze coming up
You
off
can
the
see
road.
the haze, yeah, the heat haze, yeah.
Yeah, I see it like that, but more in the form of a human. I can't say I don't see solid like that, like I'm seeing you guys, but it's more of a haze more often than it is you seeing them. I have seen them solidly. The last one was when a former teammate and we done Dunwich. When we done Dunwich, and Dunwich is so small. It's called the British Atlantis because over a mile worth of land is all under the sea. And when Dunwich itself, only 50 people live there all year round. Only 50 people, and all that's there is literally one pub and a cafe, and that is literally all that's there.
Yeah,
we was there. Must have been 20 past 10 at night, maybe slightly later, and I saw somebody walk past, and it did look like solid. And because we was doing an investigation, and there was somebody there, I thought, oh, I better check her out the way before we go live. I walked through this bit of wall, nobody, and this is in like a more of an open field. So, but Joe's done so many investigations. You must have had many an experience, Joe.
Quite a few. I was just sitting here thinking while I was listening to you. I really think the very first, the first time that I ever really saw, felt, heard a ghost, and it was mostly feeling this one. It was before my very first investigation, really, because my first investigation, I always say, is in Italy when I was stationed
in the Navy, wasn't it?
Right. But this is before then. This is before I did that. So it was probably 1981. I left home in 85, so that whole time period in there, this fits with. But the house that we built out on the bluff over just above the beach in Kenai, Alaska, we built this really nice big house. We had neighbors on either side, but we each had like an acre of land and things like that. It was nice. So we got it. We built the house on the old Cannery Road, so we didn't have to build a driveway and all that. It was already there. So we did this. The culvert was already in for the creek bed along the road, and everything was good. It was a little cheaper doing it that way. But many years earlier, there was a car crash into the tree right there that was in front of our house. The boy survived during prom night. The boy survived. The girl died, and there's proof that this happened. As far as I remember, there is. But when we built the house, we had a basement, ground floor, first floor, and it was a pretty good size house. It was 3,500 square feet, something like that. Pretty good size. 5 bedrooms. So it was decent. But my mom always saw a girl in a blue satin dress in the basement. And she talked to her all the time when she was down doing laundry. I don't know if I ever remember seeing her, but I do know we felt her all the time. And everybody, we would run up the stairs like crazy because there was somebody watching us. You could never walk up the stairs quietly. You had to run. Even my dad, who says, I don't believe in ghosts, would run up the stairs every single time because there's somebody right there, right behind you. And that went on for a number of years. My mom would sit there and talk to her all the time. And but eventually the girl went away when they did some work on the house and had to lift it up a little bit to replace the walls. So after that, the girl was gone. Nobody ever saw her anymore after that. And But then my first investigation, I don't think we found anything. I was too excited to be going on an investigation. So I never really thought about what I was recording on the cassette recorder or what pictures I was taking with the camera. You know, it was just pictures around this building that we were in. It was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in an apartment in Riverside, California. I was doing laundry. The washing machine was out on the balcony. That kind of, you could look down and see the pool from one end of the balcony, and you could just, it was just right there. And I was moving laundry from the washer to the dryer, and I happened to glance up, and there was this kid, probably 16 years old or so, I'm guessing, standing in the sliding glass door looking at me from inside the house. Never seen a kid before. I couldn't see his face. All I could see was his blonde hair and a white shirt, long sleeve. That was it. I couldn't see legs, couldn't see his face, just blonde hair and his shirt. I thought that was really interesting. So I looked up and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And by the time I looked and saw that, he disappeared. Then probably a month later, I'm sitting there doing dishes, and I see somebody just at the top of my eye standing there, the same person, blonde hair, white shirt, standing there. And I know better now than to look up at him. So I start talking, and he's still there the whole time I'm talking, but I don't hear anything else. I don't hear him saying anything, but it's like very interesting. I'm watching him doing this. Mm-hmm. So finally I look up and he disappears. And I saw him walking by 3 or 4 more times. My bedroom was right by the front door, and I would see him walk right through the front door and go outside. And I don't know what he was doing outside, but he walked through the door and go outside, and I'd see him a while later, maybe walking back sometimes. But it was always interesting. And probably 4 years after that, a friend of mine who knew about this ghost, she had moved into the apartment right next door to the one I was in. And one night she calls me about 10 o'clock and she says, "You need to come and tell your ghost friend to get out of my house."
Seriously?
What's going on? Well, he keeps turning on the water. He keeps flushing the toilets. He keeps opening doors and closing doors. Why don't you just ask him to leave you alone? I have. He's not doing it. Can you come over and get rid of him? So I went back over there and looked around. I never felt or saw him at all. Of course, I couldn't get into my old apartment. That's maybe where he was. But they could never rent my old apartment for more than 3 or 4 months at a time. So apparently, they no, it's just not right for us. It's not right for us. And then they move out. They break their lease and move out. But my friend was there for 3 years. Finally, she moved from that apartment to a smaller one across in the next building over. She never saw or heard from that guy again, from my ghost friend again. That's what she called my ghost friend. But apparently those 2 apartments up top, I'm just laughing because they used to charge way too much rent. I'm just laughing. Yeah, they do.
I think the worst situation for me was when my eldest 2 were really, really young. They're in their 20s now. And I'm trying to think how old they were. Kieran was 3 and Brandon Lee was 5. We lived in Stanford-le-Hope, which ain't overly far. It's about half-hour drive from where I am now. And if you look, there's what's the name of the road? I'll try and think it. Abbott's Drive in Stanford-le-Hope. There was a spate of about 8 houses that had poltergeist activity. And our house was a road over and then down a few steps. So it was slightly down a hill. So we had the activity. And it started off that Brandon kept saying that he saw somebody looking through his bedroom window, because the way it was, the front door, you had to come down a few steps along a pathway. The front door was on ground level. As you came in, you had a small box bedroom on the left, which I used to have all my reptiles in. I had snakes and iguanas and all that. I literally turned the whole room into like a mini zoo. Then you had a walk-in cupboard that was about 8-10 feet long, about 3 foot wide, toilet, then a kitchen next to that, then the front room, and the bedroom you had to go downstairs to. Now, Brandon kept saying he was seeing somebody looking through the window. Now, at the time, there was a known kiddie fiddler that lived on the estate that the police had for some reason, moved in there. So, of course, we warned the neighbours, he might be, because you could just climb over the gate and look through the bedroom windows. So we warned the neighbours, and no, we ain't seen nothing. Well, a little while after that, the younger of the two, Kieran, he had a thing about Power Rangers. And we'd gone into Basildon to do a little bit of shopping, get a bit of McDonald's, and went into Poundland. And they had Poundland versions of Power Rangers. And if he wanted a toy or something, he'd say, "Oh, that's pretty, that is," which meant he wanted it.
Right.
And you go, "Oh, you want it?" You go, no, it's just that it's pretty. But you knew he meant he wanted it. Well, he got the I think it was the Black Power Ranger one that he had. Because it was Poundland, it fell apart within 5 minutes, completely broken. We happened to be going to Basildon the following day for a hospital appointment for me. So I said to him, "Look, it's broken. We'll go back in there. We'll take it back and we'll get it exchanged." And I put it on top of his wardrobe. Now, he was like 2 or 3 at the time. And he's on top of this wardrobe. I went and got him up the next morning, and he was sitting on the floor playing with it. And I thought, I don't remember buying 2 of them. Perhaps I did. It's early morning. I was trying to get ready, trying to get their breakfasts. And I went, "Kieran, did I get you a second one?" He went, "No." I said, "Well, where'd you get that from?" He went, "My friend fixed it for me." Which was like kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then from there, it started getting strange, because Kieran's, I can't remember the name he used, but he started talking about this little girl that had died. And I just thought it's like a child being a child. I happened to be going through the newspaper one day, and as I turned the page, the obituaries were there, and this little girl with the same name and age was in the obituaries, and she had died exactly how Kieran had said.
Yeah.
And then from that point, that's when it started getting weird. We'd be walking along, we'd find needles in the carpet sticking up in like sharp side upright. Sometimes we'd either go out or get up in the morning, and we had the tea and coffee canisters, like black smoke glass, white lid, and they'd be stacked on top of each other, and there'd been no one in the house. And then one day we came back, and there was 3 sharp kitchen knives stuck in the back of the front room door. That is going like that. And then one day we got a dog called Woozer, and he was a Rottweiler cross German Shepherd, I think he was. And the kids were downstairs in bed, fast asleep. It was about 11 o'clock at night. Their mother was talking to whoever it was that she was having a fling with at the time. And I said to her, "Oh, I'll leave you two. I'm gonna go check on the kids and go to bed." And as I tried to come out the door, the dog started growling at me, and I thought, "Oh, I'm gonna get bitten here." And as I stood there, black mist came from the front door turned the corner towards me, and then started going down the stairs. The dog sprinted down the stairs in front of this mist and started growling and barking at it. And he would not let me down the stairs, and would not let the mist down the stairs. It finally culminated that the boy's mum was getting ready to go off and have a dirty weekend with one of her bits on the side. She needed to get a suitcase out of the cupboard, and she'd gone into the cupboard with one of the neighbours, this girl called Tina, and a pair of garden shears got thrown at the pair of them.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's not healthy.
Nice entity.
Yeah, it was not nice whatsoever.
No,
I don't know how true it is, because I never personally witnessed it, but a couple of people claimed they saw a black hooded figure follow me a couple of times. How true? Whether that's them just playing mind games with me because their mum used to like playing mind games, I don't know. But it was said. Whether it was that part was true or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's strange. Kids pick up on so much more than we do.
Oh,
as we said last week, I think part of that is because all our experiences, everything we're taught is ignore it, reject it,
and deny it. Yeah,
deny it. It doesn't. It's not real. It's not happening. There's always a rational explanation for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or talking about kids, my daughter, when I first got divorced, the first house I moved into, I rented.
Mm.
And typical terraced house. But I never ever liked the back bedroom.
Mm.
There was always something. It wasn't nasty. It wasn't a horrible feeling. It was just so sad.
Mm.
It was. I was totally uncomfortable in there.
Mm.
And I only ever used it for. I put the maiden in there for washing. So I'd have me washing on it. Put a few things in for my daughter.
Mm.
But we rarely ever went in there. And it was, like I say, it was just such a harrowing, sorrowful feeling.
Mm.
But my bedroom was at the front. And my headboard was against the wall. And as I looked to my right was the bedroom door.
Mm.
And I looked towards the bedroom window. But I always got the feeling I was being watched. I always shut my bedroom door. I could never sleep with it open because I always got the impression I was being watched.
Mm.
And I was playing with my daughter on my bed. She'd be about 3.5, 4.
Mm.
And she's jumping up and down on the bed. And she kept looking at the door and saying, "He's not here."
Okay.
She hates me telling this story because she can't remember a thing about it.
Mm. Sometimes that's good though.
Well, it is, but she likes me, like me, is into the paranormal and goes on ghost hunts and investigations with me and does them herself. But she cannot remember this. But she kept looking at the door and stopping what she was doing and saying, "He's not here." And I said to her, I said, "Who are you talking to?" She says, "The little old man."
Mm.
He stood in the door. I said, "What's he saying?" She says, "He's asking for somebody, but he's not here."
Mm.
So, thought, right, okay, I'm going to have this out. So, next time I saw my landlady, didn't say anything about why I was asking. I just said, "I'm not being funny." I said, "But has anyone ever died in this house?"
Mm.
And she looked at me funny. She says, "Why?" And I explained about the back bedroom. I said, I get a really sad feeling in there and everything. I said, "But the reason I'm asking," I said, "my daughter was talking to someone."
Mm.
She said, "Yeah." She said, "It's funny you should say that." She said, "But my husband died in the back bedroom."
Oh, yeah.
And he was really, really ill. And it took 6-8 months for him to actually die of his symptoms, but it was really harrowing for her.
That makes sense. It's a sad feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't pick up on him. I just picked up on the sadness.
Yeah.
But my daughter actually saw him. I said, "Not being funny, but did he say anything on his deathbed?" She said, "He died asking for my son. My son was up in Scotland at the time, but he was on his way down, but he didn't last before he got down here." And that's what he was asking. He was asking for his son.
That is sad.
And my daughter picked up on that. And like I said, "He's not here."
Mm.
It was a weird one because I moved out a couple of months later and my lease was up. I was buying a house. And I said, "Are you going to rent it out again?" She said, "No, my son's moving in."
No, hopefully they finally connected then.
Well, that was it. That's what I said. I said, "Well, hopefully your husband will find rest."
Yeah, bless him.
Yeah, have the son talk to the husband. Have the son talk to the dad.
Like I say, he knew about it. they didn't know when his dad was going to die, obviously. They just knew he was travelling down from Scotland. He lived in Scotland at the time. He was travelling down, but didn't make it. And the father died asking for him. But my daughter described him. And when I described him to my landlady, she said, yeah, that's him.
Wow.
I never ever saw him, but I knew he was there because, like I say, I always got the feeling he was stood at the door watching. And that's exactly where my daughter saw him.
See, you're saying about the kids and that, they do often say that their children with autism will pick up on spirit even more so than most children. Now, ironically, Harry, whose birthday it was, and I wish him happy birthday from you guys, by the way.
Yeah.
And he said to say thank you, which is unlike him because he don't usually use the thank you word.
Yeah, but it's us. It's us. He will say thank you.
Yeah. No, bless him. He was actually he was good. It was his brothers that were a nightmare. But yeah, he's autistic. It's taken 7 years, but we've finally got the diagnosis for him. And we feel he's not severely autistic, but it's enough to notice. But he's never ever commented. I spoke to Heidi about it once because her house has a lot of activity. And I've told you guys over the years some of the stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
But he's never ever mentioned it at all. Now, I don't know if it's because he's scared, because he's very, I can't think what the word is, but he gets very intimidated very easily. It's like if you say to him, God, you've grown up, he gets really upset. No, I want to be a baby still. You know, he doesn't, no matter what it is, he does not like anything different.
I think part of that is where you are on the spectrum. We are all on the spectrum, and it gets me when
some of us more than others.
Yeah.
They say if we've got OCDs, it's a form of autism now, right? So
it's gets me. You get people who claim to be autistic, or I'm on the spectrum. So am I, mate. So am I. It depends on where, and like you said, it takes years to actually get a full diagnosis.
Yeah, seriously,
you can't just claim you are. And
Harry was 3.
Again, it depends on where you are on the spectrum as to what you pick up on.
Yeah, possibly.
There's the black lad in America who draws.
Yes, is he the one that went up in the helicopter and he can draw? Yeah,
from memory, everything he saw.
From everything, and it's
amazing.
Other than very minor details, it's almost a perfect bloody replica of what he's seen.
Me, I can't even draw a stick man without tracing paper. I'll tell you. So I've seen him. I've watched a few bits. He's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
it's like you said, kids have a different ability, totally different ability, because they believe what they see. And like we were talking earlier, it's one of those you think, there's something not quite right.
Yeah.
Like we say, we don't tend to see him or know we see him. But there's that friction that you think, why? I mean, one of my earliest experiences, paranormal experiences, I have no idea whether it was a ghost or what. But when I was about 5 or 6, and I used to sit on my bedroom window, on the windowsill, looking out. And there used to be a little old man stood under the lamppost across the road from us. But he must only have been
about came up with Freddy Krueger.
Possibly. But he must have only been about 3 foot tall.
Christ.
But he was stood there in a black pair of trousers, pit boots, white shirt and braces, and a bowler hat.
We got Tracy and her husband Andy just come online. So hi guys, Conjure Quest Paranormal. So hi to them.
Hello.
So,
Yeah,
Joe, I'm sorry, Ian. Yeah, sorry, I meant.
So,
sorry.
yeah. So, like I say, he was there with a bowler hat. But he must have been there every night for about 3 or 4 months. And my dad had come up and it's time to go to bed. Who you watching? What you watching? Little old guy over there. Same with my mum.
Mm-hmm.
No one else ever saw him, but like I say, he was a solid. And I know exactly how big he was because of the style of lamppost.
Yeah,
and I knew where he came up to on it.
That's weird. That could have been a spirit, I suppose.
I've no idea to this day what it was, who it was.
But 3 foot tall, that's like dwarf size, isn't it?
Yeah.
So...
But he wasn't. Dwarfs tend to be stocky.
Yeah.
This guy was just normal proportions, perfect normal proportions. But he was an old guy.
Blimey. That's interesting.
I know there was a lot of pit activity around the area, and I've often speculated as I've got older, grown up, that he was he might have been what's it called, someone in a pit accident or something, because the clothing wouldn't fit with that type of activity.
If there's a lot of pits in that around that area, was there a lot of Tommyknocker legends?
No, surprisingly enough.
It's interesting.
Because you would expect there would be, but
yeah,
I mean the whole of the northwest, Wigan, Bolton, all around that area, there were collieries. Atherton had its own colliery and all the rest of it, but I've never heard of any Tommyknockers or anything like that.
Well, what would this been like? 60s, 70s?
No, I was what? I was born 65, so yeah, it'd be 65, 70s around.
Yeah, so there would have been a lot of pits open back then, wouldn't there? So that's weird.
I mean, we used to play on the coal hills across the what's now the M61 motorway, but we used to go and play on the coal hills. We used to ride push bikes and that over and had our own course set.
Yeah. What was that? How's it go? Oh, bloody hay fever. As to, I'm not sure if that's Andy or Tracy, like I said, that's watching. But yeah, it's going great as always. We're gassing and shooting the breeze. Excuse my language. So Joe, any more from you, my young man?
Oh, hundreds. But there's one that I was just thinking about. Your story, looking down the hallway, reminded me of one that my brother told me about. And neither one of them are really into the paranormal at all. But my next youngest brother, had moved into George Washington's fort. It was in Winchester, Virginia, and George Washington actually built this place as a fort. And then later on, it was turned into a girls' school. So there was an L-shaped building that had the classrooms and the dorms and stuff for the girls in it. And then there was a square building opposite of the corner of the L-shape that was 3 stories tall, and that's where the teachers and the matron and all those folks lived in this part of it. He had just moved into the square part of the building that he was on the middle floor. There were 3 floors, and he was in the middle floor. He was sitting there putting a stereo together one night, and he hears somebody say behind him, a woman's voice, "What are you doing here?" And he turns around. Of course, there's nobody there. So he's like, well, that's really strange. So a few nights later, weeks later, I have no idea. I don't know the scale of this because the second part of his tale, he's got his bedroom set up and he can look, which I would never do in my life. He can look down the hallway to the front door from where he's laying down in bed. So one night it was very, very stormy. lightning flashing all over the place, and he wakes up due to a thunder crash. He wakes up and he looks down the hallway, and he sees a woman dressed in black with a high, tight collar, her hair done in a very tight bun, and she looks mean. And whoa, that's really weird. He saw during a lightning flash, saw her at the end of the hallway.
That sounds almost like governess.
Yeah, well, or the matron. You know, what are you doing here? So he kind of like is just laying there watching to see what's happening. Another thunder and lightning combination goes off, and she's even closer coming toward him in the hallway, and she's just like staring at him. So he's I don't know what's going on. So another lightning flashed again, and she's farther down the hallway. So he gets up, gets dressed, and goes out the back door. Gets in his car and goes to the 7-Eleven. Calls my brother, who's 20 miles away. Oh my God, I can't, he tells him the story. And then the next morning they call and tell me the story. And I'm like, oh, that is so cool. But I got a chance to go to the house, that apartment that he was living in. Got a chance to see that probably, 10 years later, 8 years later. And it was just awesome. But I didn't see the ghost. I didn't feel the ghost or anything. But that was his most ghostly, crazy experience. We were doing an investigation in California in a small town in a canyon, not far from the coast, just north of LA, a little bit north of LA, San Fernando Valley area. And the investigation.
About that.
What's that?
I vaguely remember you saying that. That was some years back, that is now.
Oh, yes, it was quite a while. But we were doing this investigation. It was going very well. It was just a standard, normal thing. I went out to go get some more batteries. This is like 1 o'clock in the morning. The family's just asking us questions, and we're having a great old time. I go out about 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's 3 or 4 people from the next house standing outside along the road. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, shouldn't you guys be asleep or something? And she goes, oh, are you the paranormal guy, the ghost hunter guy? I said, yes. Well, come here. You're going to want to see this. So I go up there and I'm standing next to them. They said, just watch the road. It happens at a certain time, quite often, at a certain time. It's like, okay. And they're standing there. Pretty soon, you see this guy walking along the road. You can see right through him. It's just the shape. Slightly misty. You could see him walking along the road all the way down. I couldn't get my camera to take a picture. Couldn't get anything to work right. It's just, we're just standing there watching this. And this guy walks down the road, and the girl said, he does this quite often. And she gave me a name, and I don't remember what it is anymore. And I've got it in my notes someplace. And she said, yeah, he does it quite often. And he's out walking his property line. He owned all his property down along here, and he does that quite regularly. So, Dave, the guy that owns the house right up by where the Manson murder took place.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a house 3 houses down from where that took place, hanging out over the canyon. And I was at his place one night. We were doing a investigation over there. And this was a couple of months later, and I told him about it. And he goes, oh, yeah. He gave me the name again. He knew exactly what was going on. Told me the story. Oh, yeah. He knew about this happening. He says, I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. And it's like, okay. So lots of people have heard about it, or some anyway. So I always thought that was quite interesting. That was really an interesting thing, though.
What I do find interesting is how often of things like this, when people say, oh, yeah, I've seen it as well, or this, that, and the other, how much of it is suggestion?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Some of it could be. Some of it, I think he's, like I said, people don't admit things. But when other people start talking about it, oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Right.
Yeah.
But he gave me the name.
Your brain doesn't register it as a paranormal event as such.
Yeah.
when
But Dave gave me his name, so I kind of have to say at least he has more information. And these folks didn't tell me what to expect. They just said, you got to see this. And we're watching. And as the guy's walking by, they're telling me about how he comes around often and things like that and how he does this all the time. But that was really neat.
See, now as I've said to you, at the moment, I've kind of lost my faith in it all because of everything that happened before, because of having to deal with my health, dealing with the kids and everything. So I just woke up one morning and went, you know what, I really don't know if I believe anymore. I want to believe as strongly as I did. And I've had like the situation with the cooker the other month.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of stopped and I'm getting more and more cynical, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think to a degree it's a good thing.
No, I mean, I'm getting really cynical.
No, yeah, exactly. That's the thing, though. You were questioning things.
Mm.
What I hate is blind faith.
Mm.
Yeah. You got to question things all the time.
Yeah. Hey, that's definitely paranormal. It's bloody dust motes.
Yeah.
There you are on orbs again.
It's someone's breath. It's someone walking about in the background. Yeah, you don't.
Or smoking a cigarette and taking a picture. You know, you took a picture just after you blew smoke this way. And there's smoke in the pictures.
We were the only people in the field. Yeah, you might have been in your group, but it doesn't mean people weren't walking around in the path in the background.
Yeah.
So it's in some ways it's good. Everyone has a crisis of faith, even bloody priests. So having a crisis of faith in the paranormal is when most people don't.
I don't talk about priests because I tend to get myself into trouble with the Christians.
My nephew visited a few weeks ago, and we were up at Cemetery San Luis, which is not far from the house, back behind the train station here. And we're wandering around. We saw no one at all for quite a while. And we were walking along this little area, and most of the graves are above ground. You know, like most of France's graves are all above ground. Now there's a few that are not in the area, but we're standing there talking and we're looking at this really cool tomb that they've got set up. We're looking at it, reading the names and the dates and things. And we hear one or two girls giggling. And we both look at each other and go, huh. So we start walking up between the graves, the direction of the voices that we heard. And we walked all the way up to the next road and saw nobody. When we got out on the road, we started walking, and there was an old lady walking along toward the exit, like she's cutting through the cemetery from the front gate to the back gate. She's cutting through there, and she's the only person that we saw. But it was clear as day, like a girl or two girls giggling, and they sounded like they were 10, 20 feet away from us.
Yeah.
And we walked right toward the voices and didn't see a single person other than an old lady walking through the cemetery. It's
weird how you pick things up.
Yeah.
My old primary school was haunted. And the story was, and it did feel it, did get it occasionally. The story was that during the war, they'd had a dance in the factory across the way from the school. But the toilets weren't available in the factory for whatever reason, so they were using the school toilets. And this girl got murdered in the toilets. We were having a school disco one night, and we heard a girl screaming. So we all rushed out like you do. Kids, teachers, stormed into the girls' toilets, and there was a girl trapped in one of the cubicles screaming her head off. And when she was asked, she couldn't get out. Teachers struggled to actually get the cubicle door open.
Interesting.
And she said that some woman had come in and she'd locked herself in the cubicle because this woman was trying to attack her.
Blimey.
And she said she could see her feet under the door.
Mm.
And the shoes she described were like brogue type shoes, sort they wore in the war. She described the woman as being in a dress. When she described it, she had no idea what sort of dress it was, but apparently it was factory worker dress. But she'd also put her hands on the thing, and she said she had some sort of knife. And what she described was a cutthroat razor.
Wow.
The woman who was allegedly murdered, was called Esther.
Mm.
And she'd been slashed with a cutthroat. That's how she died.
So it was another woman that killed her?
It
was she not carrying the
They
razor?
never found the killer.
Wow.
They found the razor, they found the cutthroat, but they never ever found her. And everyone said that was why she was. I mean, the school's gone now; it's been flattened. But we actually found a grave. They'd moved a load of gravestones because they were putting a new building up or something. So they shipped the actual bodies out, reburied them, but the headstones were all lining the wall outside a nightclub, believe it or not, down the back street. And we found the gravestone of Esther. I can't remember the second name, but everything tied in, the dates, everything. When she was allegedly killed. But this girl was absolutely traumatized. I mean, she'd only be about 8 or 9.
Yeah, that'd be scary. Definitely scary at that age.
Yeah.
One that I remember, God, I don't think how old I was, but around the time you actually went to the last ever Queen concert, didn't you, Ian? You lucky sod.
Yeah.
At the time, because that was in Nedworth, and I lived in Stevenage at the time as a youngster. My so-called father was a groundskeeper. My mother was a cleaner for I don't know what type of judges they were, but they were judges, the Pollock Hills they were called. They had their own Victorian mini mansion in the middle of their own forest with acre upon acres of land. Between their house and our house was all just one, had been knocked into the two, but between the two there was what they used as a wine cellar, but originally it had been used for putting slaves in and things like that.
Yeah.
And on a regular basis you would hear chains rattling from in that walkway. I remember that vividly, but the one that sticks out to me so much even now was when I lived in Clacton-on-Sea. My father had gone out to work for the night. My mother was in bed, and in their place, you'd walk through the front door. There was a little lobby there that was like 6 foot-ish square, and you'd walk through another door into the actual house. Now, they had a yowl lock on it, a chub lock on it, and a bolt at top and bottom. That was always put on at night because he was saying he was working. We know he wasn't, but he was saying he was working. And it all been done. His 2 dogs always slept in my room. I had a little fold-up sofa bed with action man sofa beds in the corner of my room that we'd got cheap. One of the dogs was asleep on there, and the other one was asleep on my bed. My mother was asleep in the room next door. Must have been about 1:20 in the morning. We heard the front door open and shut, the inner door open and shut, and footsteps come up the stairs. And it was that loud it even woke me. And when I'm asleep, I'm out for the count. And my mother called out like, "Tom, is that you?" Not a single thing. She went down the stairs. Thought, oh, it's a bit weird that she'd heard him come up the stairs and then nothing. Why has he come home from work so early? She went down there and the door was still fully locked from the inside.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and we never ever did find out what that was. Ever.
It's strange how the mind works.
Mm.
When it happens to just you, you think, did that really happen?
Mm.
But when other people corroborate it,
yeah. Unfortunately, my mum's dead now. She died a couple of years back, and I'd stopped talking to her a couple of years before she died, unfortunately, for personal reasons. But yeah, I remember it was just before she married now widowed husband. I was talking to her about that, and she said, "Well, yeah, I vividly remember it."
Yeah.
So, but that was, I think, the most outstanding thing, or the most recent one that I remember, was when I went to Clare Priory. It's an Augustinian priory in Suffolk. They still practice there, and there's a tree, and I've actually got this on video from a previous team that I tried to put together, and we was at this. It's weird to explain Clare Priory. It's like the whole place is built up of a series of bubbles. You could be walking along feeling just perfectly normal, and you sort of like walk through this bubble, and for no reason whatsoever, you just get really, really angry. And you might walk a few more steps, and it's like you've gone into another bubble, and for no reason, you just burst out crying or burst out laughing. Yeah. Or it's really weird location. It's a very strange location. But the actual priory, you can go in there as long as you're quiet and don't cause any damage, obviously. And there's this one tree that they call the devil tree. And you know my opinions, that sort of thing don't exist. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the devil. But when I was standing around that tree, there was 5 or 6 of us. I was trying to get EVP responses, this, that, and the other. And it was caught on camera. Something actually started strangling me.
Interesting.
We got it on camera.
Did you have bruises or anything, or was it just the feeling of it?
The feeling, I literally couldn't breathe, and I didn't have any marks, but I just literally, I could feel my throat my Adam's apple being pressed in.
Wow.
And that, as I'd say, was, this year would be 41 years I've been investigating. I'd say that's the most scary experience I've had, because I honestly thought I was going to stop breathing completely.
Yeah, not a very pleasant experience.
And the fact is, it's inside the grounds of a monastery.
I've often found abbeys, monasteries, churches, that kind of stuff are full of haunts.
Monasteries, when you consider the Reformation and all that, and the number of monks and friars that were killed and died in areas like that. It's like we were talking last week about the White Ladies.
Yes, yeah.
And the number of rumours that nuns were bricked up because he'd had an affair with a priest or whatever. And yeah, you do wonder. There's an awful lot of emotion, good, bad, sad.
Yeah.
Goes into churches, about to leave its mark.
I
had a ghost at my wedding.
You saying that, actually, yeah, go on, I'll let you tell your story, but you saying that just reminded me of something.
It was weird. We got the photos back, and we're showing him round, and there was a woman on him, dressed for the wedding and everything, dressed really smart, solid as everyone else. But she appeared on about 3 or 4 photos.
And you've no idea who she was?
And no one out of both sides of the families had any idea of who she is. They all thought she was must have been part of the other family.
That's
but
strange.
Very, very few people actually remember seeing her there. It's only when they were looking at the photos, oh, who's she?
So she was there in the photos, but no one actually saw her there in.
Very, very few people remember actually seeing her at the actual wedding.
And it weren't
I certainly didn't see her.
It weren't a gate crasher.
No, like I said, people don't remember seeing her at all. She stood in, like I say, she appeared in 3, maybe 4 photos. But she wasn't stood on her own. She was stood in groups. And when we spoke to the people, don't remember her, but who's she?
Wow.
Is she your answer? So nothing to do with me. We thought she was your side of the family.
Blimey.
The trouble is, I've not got the photos anymore.
Yeah.
And it was just a weird one. And they always say it's lucky to have a ghost at your wedding.
I've heard that.
It was just, like I say, everyone looking at the photo, all has to say, who was she?
That's
and I don't remember her. She stood next to me, but I don't remember her.
Well, you saying about that, I remember when me and Heidi got married, was at the funeral, and my nan hadn't long passed. It was only about a year or so before the wedding that she died. And I really, really strongly felt her cuddling me at the time. So unfortunately, none of it, because I think, well, because of life, I don't talk to them. I didn't even get to go to my own mum's funeral. But what I was going to say was, I briefly mentioned it. I know it's going off topic. But these firewalls that they've created. I've been following that really closely because I think it's fascinating that they can do that. But the amount of people have gone, oh, you shouldn't play God and this, that, and the other. It's just unbelievable. Something as miraculous as I know. I know it's like their prey species sort of like went out, and man would have had a part to do with it as well. But the fact that we can do something, 12,500 years, that creature has not been on this planet.
Yeah.
I just think it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But the amount of people have gone, oh, you should put them down. It's against God. And
God, sorry. Yeah, don't get. I was raised a Catholic. My mum's still a staunch Catholic. And I have nothing against people having beliefs. But when they come up with comments like that, it's reason they're giving for you shouldn't play God. We can't have the death penalty. Who are you to play God? To me, God's a man-made concept. You don't see animals creating altars, worshipping bloody sky fairies.
Yeah. There's well, you both know my views on it, but I sometimes watch people like Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Ra, and Forrest Valky and all that go do these chats to these Christians and things and that, and I just sit there pissing myself with laughter because some of the stuff some of the Christians come out with is just, I'm not, if it's your view, fair enough, but don't ram it down my throat.
Yeah, we're all entitled to a view. The thing is, Carl, it's not just Christians. You look at any of the religions.
Yeah.
You look at the belief system. It's a means of controlling the masses.
It is, yeah.
That's all it is. And it's like Islam. To
be honest,
religion
I don't know
of love.
about Islam, but
the religion of love.
Right.
Yeah.
Supposedly. There's no love in religion.
Anything but. There's more deaths been caused through religion than any other cause.
I had no word of a lie. I had an argument. It was either last week or the week before with a Christian that said Noah was 960 years old. He spent 120 years building a boat, sailed from the Middle East to the North Pole, then down to the South Pole, picking up penguins, polar bears, and Arctic foxes, sailed around the world for 40 days, ended up in Turkey, and then the polar bears and penguins walked back to where they came from.
Yeah.
And when I said, you're insane, you're absolutely, I'm sorry, but I weren't quite that rude, but I basically said, no, that's not possible. They called me devil worshipper because I didn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, the whole world is only 2,000 and something years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no one as blind as those who won't see.